Few things are for sure in this life, but this is. If we live for any substantial amount of time, we will encounter grief due to the loss of a loved one. Not something any of us ever want, and we all handle it differently. This podcast is to feature those who have done purposeful and meaningful things through their grief. These people featured on here are normal folks, just like you and me, who were thrust into a place they never wanted to be in their lives. A painful place. As they move through their pain, they realize that something worthwhile, something for the greater good could come out of the unthinkable. I'm sure that none of them would ever consider themselves to be a hero, but when I searched the definition of the word hero, I found this: a person who is admired or idolized for courage, outstanding achievements, or noble qualities. And that fit. And so it's my privilege to bring you the remarkable stories of these heroes in grief. Hi, everyone. This is Tom, your host for the Heroes in Grief podcast, and the response has been incredible so far, and I want to thank you for that. It's getting out to people, and they're letting us know that it's helping them, and that is what it's all about. I want to make you aware of a way that you can support this podcast without having to spend 1 cent, and that is through affiliate marketing. I've set up affiliate marketing for online shopping. If you do online shopping, then I have links to all the major retailers, most of them anyways, and I can provide them for you so that when you buy online through those links, you'll help support the podcast through the percentages that we get. It doesn't cost you anything more. You just shop like you regularly would on the sites that you love. It's very easy. All you have to do is shop. And that's it. Just let me know the links to the places that you want to shop at, and I will provide the affiliate links so that you can do it. If you want more information on this, you can go to heroesandgrief.com. It takes you to the Linktree page where a video explains it in a little more detail. But you can always email me at tom@heroesandgrief.com, and I can answer questions for you. But you can support the podcast that way, and it's very easy, very simple, and it doesn't cost you a cent. Isn't that great? Thank you. Now here's today's episode. Everybody, welcome to Heroes in Grief, the podcast, and you can watch on YouTube or listen on any podcast outlet, which you're probably listening on right now. Tom Bender, your host here. Good to have you with me today. And this week I had one of those days, and I haven't had one in a long time. Grief, how it comes up, and if it's the first time listening, my son crossed over a little over 2 years ago now, and he was 27 years old. And so, the first year, everybody talks about the first year when, you go through all the anniversaries and all those kind of things. And so you're kind of occupied in that, even though as hard as it is and everything. And then during the first year, some people were telling me the second year can be worse. And when you get into the second year, what happens is that you realize that this is life now. And those anniversaries are gone. In a weird way, you're kind of anticipating them. So it's occupying your mind and that type of thing. And then the second year, you're just like, oh my God, this is really what it is. And and then I had somebody this week that I was talking to in my car, and she said, in fact, I think it just was yesterday. And she said that it's been 12 years or 14 years. And she said too, it's hard. It's still hard. And it gets harder sometimes, which is horrific to think of, but it's just the way it is. And so, different things as you go through your life, and then you think about that person not being there and maybe sharing those things with them and everything. I can understand why that's that way for sure. But very few days do I, where I'm overtaken by any kind of grief, really. Yeah, it's constantly on my mind, of course, and in processing it, and the things I do in the grief circles, of course, bring it up a lot of times. And in fact, I think I was listening to the podcast back from what I did last week when this happened. And I'm trying to think of the exact circumstance of when it happened. I was driving and I was listening to it, and I hope it'll come to me. I'm not sure. But anyways, what happened was all of a sudden I just welled up, and there was no, even the part I was listening to was not a real, you know, rough thing or a real catalyst for that or something. And it is, I'm just like, wow, there it is, and I know this happens a lot more frequent for other people, but it doesn't happen that often for me where this happens, and tears came to my eyes, and I felt that horrible grief inside. And I texted Judy right away, and my sister, and Warren Gibbons, good friend of mine, from the Helping Fathers Heal group. And Warren came back, and my sister and Judy did too, but because they get it, and Warren just came back and realized that there was nothing in particular. Sometimes you're just grieving, and sometimes it's just hurting, and you don't need anything. I wasn't seeking anything. I didn't want anything, but Warren just came back and said, "I got you," and he understood, and I knew he understood. And the same, Judy, my sister, same things. I interacted a little bit more with them, but you know, that's all people need sometimes. And so that's kind of where I'm going with some of this today, because I have a real heart for people around a grieving person and how to handle them. And I think that if we could be more proactive in the grief conversation, that people would be better equipped to be around a grieving person when it happens, when they're grieving, or when a grief event happens, when a tragic event happens. And I just had somebody contact me yesterday again about a horrific situation. And they were seeking some advice about how to be there for the person, and it's so important. And, we've all made these mistakes. I did in the past, and everybody does. The problem really is that we're too self-focused, and when we want to help somebody, first of all, because we're not equipped, we don't know how to handle it ourselves. So we want whatever we project onto that person, or say that we want to be for that person, we want it to work. We want to be the helper. We want it to be what we did to help them, because that's where our heart is. We really do want that for them. And so in that, because we're not equipped with it, and we're equipped with all the cliches and things that are said that really don't help a grieving person, but that's just what we've been conditioned to say and do, the typical things, even this one came up, and let me know if I can do something for you, or what can I do for you. And I heard that unpacked one time from a grieving person. You see, that is all with good intent, right? Let me know what I can do for you. The person I was speaking to reached out to the person that was in a grief situation, and just said, I'm very, I'm so sorry for what's happening. And, I'm not sure exactly where it went from there, but a lot of people would say something like, let me know if I can do something for you. See, the problem with that is when you're in your acute grief phase, then you're not in any position to formulate what you might need or what could be done for you. You know that all these things need to be done out there and everything, but you don't give a shit about them. Excuse me. That's what you're going to get on here sometimes. It's just, it's open form. So you really don't care. You're worried about self-preservation, self-survival in every early moment like that. And you're just worried about the next second, the next minute. And, I heard some great suggestions and things that people have done. One of my friends, and I think it was Warren again, told me that when they were in their situation when their son passed, that somebody just came and did the lawn and stuff. You don't have to ask somebody if the if the lawn needs to be mowed. The lawn needs to be mowed, right? So, I mean, what is the person going to say? You didn't mow it right or something? I mean, come on, just do it. Just do it. You don't have to ask him, something like that. I mean, you can just do. But another great thing that somebody said, and I can't remember where I heard it, but they said they brought to the house, they brought like a little whiteboard, and they wrote several things on there that are needs, like grocery shopping, like clean the house, like, can I pick up the kids, whatever. Things that related to them because they knew them, right? And they put several of them on there, and they said, just put a check next to the ones that you want me to do, or you want taken care of. And how great, because you don't want to put the onus on the grieving person, you know, and they have needs. There's no doubt you have needs, but you know, you're not going to sit there and say, "Oh yeah, I do want you to," you may, but I mean, most times people are not going to say, even though you need it and you need it done, you don't want to put that onto anybody else either. So, I mean, I know it gets a little complex, but if you know the person, it's best to analyze the situation, know the person and their needs and what they would want or need. You know them to some degree, or you can talk to someone who knows them better, who might be able to help you with that. And then there's so many ways that you could do that. You could do that at work. You could do that, in so many different ways where you could present the easiness, here, just check the boxes, whatever. So you don't have to think about that. You've got enough to worry about, enough to think about, and, help them with that. So around a grieving person, of course, might get into eventually all the things that are said that are hurtful, that they don't seem like they would be, but they are, and so, you can find those a lot of different places. I don't know if we'll cover that in depth sometime or not. I don't know, but, plenty of posts out there and plenty of even organizations that talk about that type of thing. But I love these ideas of things that people. I even thought that maybe I'll put a section of this together of ways to help a grieving person. And I was going to put it out to the men's group actually and say, what are some unique ways that people helped you that were unexpected or out of the norm, just to get people thinking outside of the box a little bit. It's very easy. And the other thing that came up a few podcasts ago is just be normal. This is what I told the person yesterday who came to me and wanted to help their friend. I said, be normal, because their world is already totally flipped out. That is so crazy what's going on. You don't need the people around you to be crazy too. Your friends and the people who love you. Be normal. Be normal. And this is what I told the person. I said, the person is concerned about reaching out too much, or I don't know when I kind of left it where, let me know, or whatever. And I said, if you're in regular contact with that person, like say you text each other every other day or something like that, I said, keep it the same. Do what you normally would do. Be yourself with that person. That'll be more refreshing than other things. That's what I think anyways. That's what would have been, or, what was good to me, people who are honest. And I said, in order to, in helping, for the general sense out there, it all comes down to love. It all comes down to true love for somebody and compassion and caring. Be ready for hard statements from them and things you may not want to hear from them. Be ready for that, because the how I'm trying to think of the word. It's chaotic, and that person is not thinking in their right mind. There's a lot about, in fact, there's a book out I saw, The Grief Brain, because there's physiological things that go on in your brain that cause you to have the memory losses, the lack of energy, the fog, all of those things, the anger, whatever, snapping back at somebody. Don't take it personally unless it's something that was personal, of course, that you perpetuated in some way. It may just happen, but be ready. If you ask, how are you doing? And you really want to know, then be prepared to listen, and in a loving and compassionate way. And you know what? You may not have a response for that, and that's okay. They just need to verbalize it too and get it out and have their grief witnessed. That's what David Kessler said early on and everything. And I didn't understand that statement for a long time. People need to have their grief witnessed. And for me, what that means is that it's a validation, that I'm hurting, I'm destroyed, and you can't feel exactly what I'm going through, but I need it. I need you to know that that's true, that that's happening. And you're so lost. You need some foundation. You need some solid something to grab onto. And when that's validated for you, it helps that. And so, that's important for sure. Hello, friends. I just wanted to take a brief break here in the podcast to make you aware of a very exciting partnership that Heroes in Grief has just formed, and that is with Get Griefy Magazine. I'm going to let their founder and editor-in-chief, Kara Sanchez, tell you all about it.
Hey, Heroes in Grief listeners. Life after loss isn't easy, but it can be colorful and full of possibilities. Meet Get Griefy Magazine, a vibrant resource filled with inspiring stories of life after loss, expert advice, and voices from everyday grievers and thought leaders. Together, they're here to help guide you toward the side of life that's left to be lived fully and authentically. Dive into Get Griefy for free on issue or snag a print copy on Amazon. Connect with us on Instagram at Get Griefy Magazine or visit getgriefymagazine.com to explore, join our thriving small business collective, or discover advertising opportunities. Let's embrace life after loss, boldly and together.
And now back to our episode. And a lot of this is stemming to this week for me, and seeing interactions on people and social media. Everybody, if you don't understand that social media can be problematic in interactions between people, it's so ironic that social media causes social distress. And I put something out this week about social discourse or civil discourse, and there's heightened, feelings on both sides of the political aisle and everything else. And you know what? The way you feel about that side is the way that person feels about that side. So, it's pretty simple. You don't have to sit there and pound it again and again and again. It's just that we probably know already by who you are, what you're posting, whatever, but and this comes down to, because I got a little sad about this today, actually. And I don't know, maybe it's the day. Today is Sunday, May 4th, 2025. And today is actually Bereaved Mother's Day. So I want to just send my love, light, comfort, and peace to all mothers out there who have lost children, whatever way. It's, lost pregnancies, and all of those too, all included in that. So I just want to put my heart out to all of you. And it's heartbreaking. It hurts. And so maybe, part of that. And I went out today and I just kind of drove around for a while, and I was trying to figure what I wanted to say today or where the podcast should go. And it all came together with some of this stuff. So, with all this thing in the social media and political thing and all this, and the angst and the anger and the oh my gosh. So I got a little sad today because I just was like, you know what? This is, and I know a lot of people are there a lot of times where it's just like, you look at the world and you're like, what in the world? You know, this is horrible. I don't want to be part of this or whatever. And I thought back to what part of enlightenment has happened through recognizing what's going on with the divine world and that world and how we are, how we fit in that, what our purpose, what I believe our purpose is, that we're guided here to love one another. And to love, first of all, love is the overriding thing. If you hear about all these, there's hundreds of thousands of near-death experiences now, and out-of-body experiences and medium connections and everything else that have, that is the overriding thing through all of it. That, and the people who experience some of these things, their life is transformed forever. And there's no explanation for that. Science is trying to explain all the rest of the other things and think they come up with these great theories and everything, but they never address that. They never address that the person's life profoundly changed and has stayed that way. And so, what do you do with that? That's, kind of another proof for me. That's all. So anyway, so I go back to saying all of this it doesn't really matter. In one way, but in the other way, I know that I can carry through in what my purpose is in this life, interacting with what I've been given to interact with. So that means you out there. That means the people that I come in contact with every day and everything. And so, when you see these things on social media where they're just so hung up on whatever, they hate this person or they hate that person in the political arena. And it's like, they're so hung up on that. They can't even, the blinders are so much there that they can't even open their eyes to what somebody is trying to state about our civil interaction, and so, boy, attacked, and I know that's going to come. So I was ready for it. But, it's just like, no, I'm talking about me and you, I've never in my life, in almost 63 years now, that have I ever sat down with anybody? We may disagree, but there's always a respect one-on-one talking to somebody. I've never had the intensity that you see on TV, the media, or what's portrayed and, whatever. I've never encountered that in my life where I'm going to fight somebody because of where they stand or all this. And that's the way it comes across on social media. Oh my God, you get attacked, where it's like, man, here comes a nuclear bomb, and I understand the issues. Believe me, I have my bent on it and I have my passions toward certain things, and I'm not happy about other things, even from whatever portion I may be looking at or whatever. So that, everybody has it. But the reality is, pretty much, and now I know you can be social activists, you can do all these different things, but pretty much what goes on in all of that world never really matters in my world. Do I pay high prices, whatever, yes, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about interaction with people and loving somebody and caring about somebody, which is what we're really supposed to do here. And that's a whole different level. So when I thought about that, when I was getting a little frustrated and I was a little sad, I went back to that. And that's what we got to do. That's kind of like recentering, like when you meditate and you come back. If you're stressing and stuff, then meditate. you know, get in touch with all this stuff that you've heard about, you know, get in touch with yourself, just center, you know, and that kind of thing. And prayer does it too. You know, you need to connect with the divine because the divine is the guidance for us. You need to connect to the divine. That's how you find out what you're really supposed to be doing here and how you're supposed to be doing that. We all have different roles. That's why, you know, somebody can jump on me and say, oh my gosh, how could you not be upset about that? You know, if this political person is doing this or doing that. And I'm like, you know, oh, well, I have my opinions and my things about certain things, but you know what? If I'm called to be something involving that, then that's okay. And I will, but I'm not. So, I mean, I wish more people would just get more of a view. I'm sorry, I keep putting my hands on the desk and it's probably shaking it around. I wish people would just get more of a view of things, an open view of things. Um, Too much. I mean, I see it all the time. I'm on social media all the time because of what I do. So I see it. I see these headlines and I know how to recognize right away if it's fake news or whatever it is. I mean, sometimes I'll research it a little bit and all it really takes is a quick search, whatever platform you use to search. Just do a quick search and you can tell right away whether it's reality or not, you know? So, I mean, that's pretty quick, but too many people, I see them posting things and then reposting things that there's no basis for whatsoever. It's just that side, you know, getting, you know, causing more antagonism. That's so, and you know, on the whole, boy, if our nation stays divided, it's going down. It's as simple as that. Conquer or divide and conquer. That's truth. So think about that. And the real enemies are others out there that are infiltrating us. And so you know, and yes, our political system, you know, oh boy, don't even get me going on the depth of what some consider to be conspiracy theories and other things too. But anyways, I don't want to go way off on all of that, but come back to the reality of loving one another and caring for one another. That is, you know, that's why that means something, why it's impressionable and everything else. I believe that we have been, you know, what we experience on this earth, what is good for us, what we like, what we don't like, that comes from what we have, what the divine has allowed us to create here. So it just makes sense. I mean, that's part of the reality of us. So that's why it means something when someone truly loves you and all of this. And you know what those people who go to the other realm say? They say that there is so much love that you can't even comprehend it, and so much acceptance and love. And almost to a person, they come back and say that. And so what does that mean? That means that that is the essence of us. And so we, you know, that's what we're supposed to be doing here too, is spreading that and being part of that. And they talk about an interconnectedness, that we're all from source or God and we're all interconnected. So the near death experience people talk about a life review, right? And so think of that in the context of what I'm talking about right now. This, all the political garbage and all that stuff going on. So in a life review, if you're not like in your life review, I've never heard anybody talk in their life review about events that, you know, whatever the political events or whatever. No, it's your interactions with people and how they feel in your interaction. It is, they say in the life review, you're not judged there. You are experiencing what the other person feels. And so you learn from that, you know, and it's not judgmental. You know, your guides may be standing there with you watching the life review and explaining to you, see, when you interacted this way with this person, this is how the person felt. It's because we're interconnected. And so it matters how that other person feels. So think about that in the context of all of this peripheral garbage that's going on. Does that really matter? No, it doesn't come through in your life review. Is it going to matter who the president is or who isn't the president in the life review? No, no, not for me. Maybe the people who are involved with those people, yes, but I mean, I don't know any of those people, so I don't think that's going to come through in my life review. Maybe my interaction with somebody discussing that would, for sure. So think about that, right? Yeah, you could be a keyboard warrior and you're all tough and everything. Think how that's going to come back on you, right? So that's pretty cool to think about, and that's what I go back to is the foundational stuff that I know that I say enlightenment all the time because that's what it is. I've been enlightened to understand, I guess, in a different way of the way this world is functioning and the way my world is functioning, and so that's what I look at, and I think it's pretty cool actually. It's hard. It's not easy. Life school is not easy, but it was very comforting, and I got a little sad. Like I said, I was getting ready to do this today, and I was going to take a shower first, and so I'm thinking, and all of a sudden I just got this heavy heart, and I was sad, and I was like, oh my god, everything's so bad. you know, in this world, it seems, and people are so angry and they're so volatile. And it's like, I'm like, oh, I can't stand it. And so I just all of a sudden just said, okay, wait, go back, center, remember this other stuff. And that's where you get peace. That's where I'm not afraid of this world. I'm not afraid of dying. I'm not afraid of what's going on in this world. I don't fear that. And so your humanness will always come back and bring that fear to you. So that's what happened was that mine, I wasn't thinking about the eternal things. I wasn't thinking about the divine things. I was just kind of living life. And that's what we do. And so it's important to get back and center yourself into that, however you do that. And it's a very, very important, but it helps. And I got an instant peace, and I was like, okay, yeah. And it's right. I'm not really worried about that. And those people really don't affect me that much. It's just really sad. I feel bad for them is really what it is. They attack me or whatever. And I'm like, I feel bad for them because they can't get out of that themselves. And I think of the stress upon them. If you're that way, if you've done that or whatever, then think about the stress you're putting on yourself. I never quite understood that even before enlightenment or whatever, my path. I never understood that because all you do is stress yourself out and all you do is make yourself tense and all of that. You're only causing yourself grief, really. You'll raise the ire of somebody else or whatever. Does that make you feel good? Does that really do anything for you? I don't know. That's not what it's about. So anyways, that's where that comes from. But helping others, I mean, that's all part of it. I think that we you got to care about the person, you got to care about them and love them. And, sure, a lot of times it's your friend or family member or somebody like that. Yes, you know them, but the depth of real love and compassion brings on it's a different level of things, and so, use your own judgment, use your own parameters, your own limits, all of those things. Don't offer something that you can't fulfill, all of that. That's all normal life management, and be solid. Don't come into a person if you're wrecked and try to help them or try to, be there for them. I shouldn't say help. You should be there for them. Don't try to do that if you're wrecked because it usually doesn't work. It may to some degree just to hold each other and be there. Yes. But the depth of the type of things I'm talking about, no, it's a different thing. So, can it work sometimes? Yeah, it can. There's very few absolutes in this world. All right. So when you hear me say something, I may say it, and sometimes I listen back and I'm like, oh boy, I should have kind of covered another angle of that too, or whatever. But, you know, that's another thing. Just people have some common sense, you know. I mean, you look at a person for their whole, okay? So if you've listened to other podcasts or you know me out there and you hear something like that, then you probably know where I'm coming from, right? You probably know. Can you can assume, you know, to some degree what I meant if I didn't complete a sentence or complete a thought, which I do all the time. I do. So, you know, but when I listen to another podcast or something, I certainly like, I don't know. Most people know I listen to Joe Rogan and that kind of stuff. And so, you know, after a while, you kind of know who that person is. And so, you know, they'll say something and they may not complete something or you could take it out of context all you want or whatever, but you know where that person's coming from. And that's been lost a lot too. It's like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? You really think of that of me? You know? And so that's what's something that too, I thought, you know, I posted something and I was like, all of a sudden, an attack or something. And I said, well, if you think that I'm so limited that I can't, you know, address different points of view, then you don't know me. You know, it's as simple as that. Everybody thinks everybody's just one way. They pigeonhole them and all this and everything. It's like, it's almost like when two of your friends break up, right? And they are upset because you're still friends with the other friend or something like that. If it didn't affect me in any way, then if I'm still friends with both of them and they didn't do anything to me, then if you think that I'm as shallow that I can't be friends with two different people and keep that separate, then whatever, you know, I mean, go your way. I don't know what to tell you. But that's the way it is with common sense a lot too, and especially on social media. Oh my god, everybody just jumps all over everybody and they think that they're this type of person because they did that. Don't you think that some people can analyze the whole situation and sit back? For one thing, I can't stand politics and politicians. I can't stand it, never have. And so it doesn't matter to me on both sides. They're all liars. All of them are liars. So, you know, that's where I stand. And so immediately they'll say, oh, you're on this side or you're on that side. It's like, yeah, whatever, but anyway, so yeah, back to the human element and caring for people. And that is the gist of today. And I would really love to get more into that and educating folks so that they're more comfortable in a grief situation. You know, grievers, the grieving people themselves, it's never going to stop the impact of a grief event or loss event. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about being better equipped. It's almost like Sandra Champlain said this, back in the 1800s, death was in front of you. It was part of their lives. They knew this. People died earlier in their life. When they held funerals, they held them in the house. People usually died and you saw them die or were there. We don't have that as much in our lives now. So their culture, death was addressed and normalized more than it is in our culture. And that, so they were, it didn't stop the hurt and the pain. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about just a normalization of this is what happens in our lives. And I'm sure that, I'm sure their families came together, other people helped them, it just was instantaneous. Everybody knew this is what happens and this is how it goes. And so, now it's like, oh, everybody just shuts it off, puts it away, and something happens and they're like, oh my God, instead of, I think you know where I'm coming from. Anyways, that's, yeah. So anyways, what else is happening? Busy performing. I'm performing at a lot of senior homes and care centers. I perform at nursing homes and stuff almost on a daily basis. And this month's very busy. I've been doing it mostly just during the weekdays, which in May, I got 23 shows or something. So it's pretty full, about 5 a day. 1 week I have 6 in that day. I know I have 4 in another, but these 2 weeks I've got 5, like 1 a day. Not 5 a day, 5 a week. So I've got 1 a day pretty much they're hour-long shows. So, but I love it because those people, they appreciate it so much, and it touches me because I feel that it's purposeful. It's great joy to be able to bring joy to them. So that's been going on. I'm working on some music with that too. Keeping busy, lining up guests. We'll have more guests coming and everything. Again, time. If I can get them in that week, I will. If I can't, then I'll just talk to you, I guess, if you can tolerate me. I want to thank everybody for the support because our Facebook group, Friends of the Heroes in Grief podcast, you can find that on Facebook, has surpassed 1,000 people. And we just reached the year anniversary of my very first podcast. I had posted out about the one I had with Chris Ryan from Helping Fathers Heal. And that was a year ago, started at the beginning of May. Or the late April, the very end of April, I think maybe. I can't remember the exact date, but the memory came up on Facebook, so I posted it. But yeah, a year. And you guys have been great. To have 1,000 people in that group is pretty amazing. And, it's getting out to a lot of different people, and that is what it's all about. You can always use your support. There's support links always in the show notes. I'll always say that. We can always use the support. So if you can do that, that's great. Not too much else. Feel free to message me always with maybe ideas on things you might want to have me get somebody on about, or a topic, or whatever you want to share about, what you thought about the podcast, maybe. Even critiques. It's all right with me. I can handle it. I can take it. All right. Yeah, I think that's about it today. Thank you, everybody, again for listening, for watching, whatever you did today. And I'm wishing my very best to all of you out there. Until next time. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Heroes in Grief podcast. If you'd like access to any of the links that we discussed in today's show, you can find them in the show notes. There's also a link there to support the podcast if you care to. And there is an email link for me there. I'd love to hear from you and your ideas about the show or what you thought about the show. You really can help out this podcast to get to more people if you subscribe, rate, or review it in whichever way your platform provides. Each week, Heroes in Grief is released on Sunday, so look for new episodes there. Thank you again for listening to Heroes in Grief.